Hey everyone, welcome to this webinar today. I think it's about time that we start. Sorry for being a few seconds late here. So today we are going to chat about why data is the future for your restaurant. There's a lot of people here, so some of you might already have restaurants and some of you don't, or are thinking of opening, or potentially could be a partner relevant for a restaurant. No matter what, the context I'll present you for today can somehow be relevant for every single function. So let's just jump into it. Before we start, I just want to show you that you can actually ask questions in the sidebar. There's also, if you want to write something, I'm just going to write a message so you can see what that is. And I'll pick up the questions as we go. So let's jump into it. I will go directly to the slides. So thank you all for coming. Today, we will try to offer you some learnings on how you can use data to improve the state of your restaurant, the performance of your restaurant, how you can build guest relationships and increase your revenue. The thing is that Superb was founded on the belief that a lot of these restaurant businesses have potential access to a lot of data, but they're not able to use it. So that's what we're going to address today. So today we are going to go through why data is essential for you to succeed, the difference between using data and not using data, how to collect and use data about your guests and business, and how you can use data to improve the performance of your team in a holistic way and increase your revenue. We're also going to look on how you can use data to give every guest a personalized experience that makes them come back to your restaurant. And ultimately, all of this will help answer how you can make your restaurant become data-driven. First, just a quick introduction of Superb. Superb is the world's first all-in-one platform that provides you with a convenient way of working with all your guest data in one place. There's not much to say other than go to our website and check it out. We recently launched a very extensive branch out of every product that's within the platform, so you can quickly find something that's relevant for you. And we continuously update it there. So the big question is, how are you running your restaurant today? We talk to a lot of restaurateurs, and most of them actually tell us that they use their personal experience or the intuition. And that's actually pretty good. Usually that intuition is right. I would give you that. But how about your team? How's your team performing when you're not there? Actually, most of the restaurant owners and managers we talk to, they never have a day off, because they tend to see revenue drop or tend to get bad reviews or something like that, because usually it's them who have all the data stored inside of their head. And from our perspective, that's a big problem. So how can we actually solve that? That's something we're going to talk about. What is a data-driven restaurant, first of all? A restaurant team that collects and uses insights about their guests and business and combines it with their intuition and personal experience. So that's actually our definition, and why we also called our platform guest experience management. It's not because the software platform always has the answer. It's actually supposed to help you with the data that you have in your head, right? So combining those two worlds will allow you to have a lot of knowledge on every guest or your business in general. Why is data essential to succeed in a new era of hospitality? There was a time when you were serving up great guest experience was simple. So that was a long time before COVID-19, and now we have a new situation, right? But no matter what, the world has changed, and a lot of you who already have a restaurant, you have seen how the whole industry have developed. Back in time, it was only about the food. And now it's about the ambience, it's about the wine, it's about the personalities that are there, it's about the chef, the brand, and the manager and his team. No matter what, the new world requires every restaurant to have a consistent understanding of their guests. Who's actually sitting in my dining room? Who's booking? Who's paying? And so on and so forth. All of that information is so important for you to continue to get the right audience in, to give everyone a personal experience, and be able to optimize on your restaurant business. So today's winners will actually be the restaurants that manage to continuously provide each guest with a personalized experience in order to make them come back. Now, Superb is working with the mid to high end segment of the restaurant industry. And I think we're actually the only platform in the world that segments it like that. We did that on purpose. The reason why we did that was because we wanted to build a platform and a feature set and so on that can help restaurants in this segment operate in the right way. We also did that because the mid to high end segment of restaurants, the concepts, the brands, they do really care about the guest experience. And they care about personalizing their guest experience for the guest. And the major revenue driver for them is actually impressing the guests so much that they actually come back instead of only relying on getting new guests all the time. We're going to jump more into depth with that further on in the webinar. Some important data that we've collected: restaurants that collect and has access to the right insights are able to deliver a personal experience will be more likely to succeed. Sorry for the grammar here. 67% of guests will spend more money when they get a personalized experience. A lot of people are actually forgetting this, so I'll just emphasize that a bit. Do you know when that magic happens between waiter and guest, or manager and guest, or chef and guest? So it's proven that guests that actually feel that magical connection, or that feeling of warmth, or the feeling that they're home, will automatically push them to spend more money. So that's something that you really need to continue to do more of. And if you can collect a lot of information about those specific guests to actually be able to accommodate them in the most personal way. 70% of guests will share the word after personalized experience. Now, this is super important, just like the other one. The reason why this is very relevant for you is because you probably don't have a massive marketing budget. And if you have, you would rather actually have your current guest database and guest book and clientele actually bring more guests to the table, so to say. And if you provide the guest with a personalized experience, this is not rocket science. You have that, you've seen that already in your restaurant. They will actually share the word and potentially come back with new people. So that's the number one growth driver for you. So be aware of that when you greet any guests. 95% of guests will come back after a personalized experience. That was circling back to what I was talking about before, is that if you manage to actually personalize the experience to that specific guest or to the specific party, you will actually be able to make them come back. And it's almost 100%. So the question is, how will this develop into the future? Will we actually hit 100%? The only thing we can see now is that more and more guests are becoming much more focused on the places that actually offer an experience that's more extraordinary than the normal, right? So what's the difference and the difference in the paradigms between not using data and actually using data? Because a lot of restaurants, they actually would say they are using data, but are they actually doing that? This is the old way of running a restaurant. I could maybe explain the graphic, but I think it makes sense. So you're using multiple systems which cannot integrate. That's the first thing you should see there. And because of that, you have no access to insights about your guests and business. We actually did this presentation in a room a year ago with around 15 different restaurant associated people, and actually 14 out of those 15 acknowledge that this is a big problem. They have no way of connecting the dots, and the decisions they make are actually based on their own experience and intuition. And ultimately, they're actually jeopardizing their business because, and you are, because you simply do not know how things are going. And in most cases, you're actually taking a bet that things will go well. So we used to actually talk about this a lot in different blogs also, that you are guessing your way forward. And instead of actually relying on what you know and what you have. So that information you have in your platforms is actually worth a lot of money, because that ultimately could bring a new clientele to you. So the big problem is that you are actually using what we call legacy software. Legacy software is a term for very, very outdated platforms, software systems. So usually they are built on, to be super technical, they're built on code that was created maybe 15 years ago. So that's why if you're using a specific platform and you experience that it's very slow and it's not improving every time an update comes or new features are being added, you also experience that that's usually because the only way to fix it is to spend a lot of time and money on optimizing it or rebuilding it. But this is actually the problem, and one of the main reasons for why you cannot access the data that's saved that's behind those systems. The other big problem is that most of them lose the data, and there's two problems here. One is if in for example the European Union and in California and many other places around the world, you've heard about GDPR and the right to be forgotten and so on and so forth. Now, this is a super important legal issue that the guests actually have a right to ask you to have the information deleted about them. So that's one reason why the data needs to, first of all, be there, but also be accessible so you can delete it. The second thing is that you are losing data because you're potentially writing down a lot of information in notebooks, or you're using your note app on your phone. You're collecting emails in spreadsheets, and everything could potentially be a mess. Now, I know that a lot of restaurant owners and managers are very happy for Excel, and I think it's an amazing product to continue to use, but you need to seek opportunities that actually allows you to automate and collect information about your guests in a better way, in a different way. And then lastly, I would like to just emphasize so you have the inconvenience over here, but you also have the inconvenience in terms of price. Now I could go on here. Using a lot of fragmented systems basically increases the bill to your accountant, because they need to collect payments information, payments reports, and so on from different platforms, where you rather could use an all-in-one that could funnel all that, into one dashboard. But the major thing is also, if you're a new restaurant, getting started with both the software platforms and the hardware will easily cost around 10,000 euros and up just to get started. And then you start to pay monthly subscription fees of between 500 and 1,000 euros. And if you need to change products in your point of sale or optimize something, you need to pay someone to come there and fix it. And ultimately, a restaurant do not have the cash to actually do that, and especially not today and going forward, at least the next years. So you need to also be conscious about what are you actually paying for. Is there something out there that potentially could cost less and give you more output? So the new way of running a restaurant is, from my perspective, much more attractive. I would love to put anyone here in contact with some restaurants that are actually working this way today, because it's very interesting. So if you look at this harmonic circle, if we look at the personal experience, is that when you offer a personal experience, you create and build more regulars, more word of mouth, which brings you new business, new guests, and actually more repeat business, so more guests that have already been there a couple of times who continue to come back. This is the key. So imagine you have a guest. Actually, many of you already do that. A guest had been there before. They came maybe 2 months ago, and you offered them one specific menu, but then they come 2 weeks later with another party. You don't really know who they are because they came with someone else who potentially made the reservation or something like that, and they get the same menu. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing because the experience doesn't change that often, but there's ways to actually use the knowledge and data about the specific person to tweak the experience the second time they arrive, right? Now, the new way of running a restaurant is about collecting the insights about your guests in business. It's about making the right informed decisions based on this data. You need to actually have complete control of your business. So a lot of people are not able to answer how well the business is actually going. How well is my restaurant doing? Imagine if you have a dream of expanding your restaurant business. You want to open more places, or you want to open a smaller place that could potentially be your cash cow or another concept. You would have to go to the bank, and you would have to actually present them with this data. Now, before you would actually present them with this data, you would pay your accountant a lot of money to get everything up to speed, to gather all that information. Now, you actually have an opportunity to just present them with a dashboard and a PDF that shows them your performance over time. So that's one side of it. The other thing is about performance tracking and guest profiles. We continue to improve our platform with a new design, and we are launching amazing rich guest profiles, which actually allows you to get more insights into the specific guests. What I mean with performance tracking is that the guest profiles can actually allow your team to be as smart as you without having year-long experience. So going back, you can actually take that vacation without worrying that revenue and the experience for your guests will drop, because you suddenly have made everyone in your team as smart as you. That sounds good, right? So ultimately, you can improve the guest experience, build relationships, and increase revenue. And I'm going to keep repeating that until we are all agree that's the power of data. So how can that actually help my restaurant? Well, the first thing I mentioned before is data-driven decision making. Actually being able to answer specific questions regarding different aspects of your business. Let's take that in practice. One could be your inventory, right? You know, a lot of restaurants, they don't use the inventory management feature inside of their point of sale or their other tools. But it's actually pretty important because, of course, there's one side of things that the accountant needs an update at the end of the month for accounting reasons, but that's not what I want to highlight. The important thing is to actually highlight what you're selling most of, what you're selling least of, so you can optimize constantly, but also so that you don't have a lot of waste. Of course, there's some restaurants that are wasteless, and that's amazing, but the restaurants that actually have a lot of waste because they're potentially not optimizing the menu and getting rid of the stuff that they don't want, or they probably have some stuff in the stock that goes bad, right? So you need intelligent inventory management that can tell you, we recommend you to actually buy these goods based on what you're selling. That's being data-driven in a practical sense. The other way of doing it is also looking at your guest data and actually being able to understand who your guests are, and go back and look at them, and when they come again, greet them, and so on. So you can personalize that guest experience a bit better. It's also about tracking the performance of your business, being able to actually historically see the graphs that allows you to get a rich insight of how well your business is doing. How did it go last summer versus this summer? Is that something that you track? If yes, then of course that's superb. If not, then you really need to do it, because a lot of restaurants are writing me directly, and you're welcome to also do that. They're asking me about how the current season will look like compared to last season. And then I send them like my expectations based on the actual data. How will this season look like? How will the next weeks look like? And then they ask me how it was last year. And then I'm just, you have the information in the platform. So you can actually easily, if you actually if you combine your tools into one and look at the data, you actually have amazing information that can tell you how busy were you last year on that specific time. So you can have that comparison and actually look at your expectations to, how much stuff should you buy for your inventory? Should you make your menus a bit smaller and potentially cheaper? How much staff should you have on, and so on and so forth. Then you can use data to build relationships with your guests and make them come back. There's different ways. Your guest book is worth a lot of money, said in the sense that you can actually take your guest book, segment it, and actually do newsletters. You can do thank you emails after the reservation. That's something we actually do today. Thanking them for their experience, and so on. Asking for feedback is also a way to do it. And then you can increase revenue by upselling. So one person that potentially orders a specific type of wine, or always orders the big set menu or the most expensive dish on the menu, should not have a waiter recommending them to buy the smallest one, right? So as a waiter, you look at it is true that you look at your guests and the table, and you build up this intuition, this feeling telling you who is who are they, and what could potentially match with their preferences. Now you can really be smarter on that part, right? So you can essentially use information, store that information to actually allow your team to know that when they handle that table the next time. The last thing I want to tell you about is give your team a revenue and experience goal that allows them to perform at their best to impress you. There's two ways you can do that. One, if you use a platform that allows you to flip the screen and see how you're performing in service, you will see an immediate effect of your team actually pushing to hit that goal in the end of the evening. Now, this doesn't mean that the experience will be bad or something like that. It basically just means that your team will be aware of it. They will have something to stand together around to actually reach that. And your manager, if you're a manager watching this, or if your manager is at the restaurant, he is your general on that floor, and he's the one that basically owns this goal, and his team will try to or will work for him and you, and you will see drastic development there, drastic output. Another one is the experience goal, right? So you can, for example, ask for feedback after their meal, and that way you can quickly get a sense, and a lot of restaurants are already doing that, but you can quickly get a sense of how good were we at actually impressing our guests. And those two goals should, from my perspective, way higher in terms of giving a bonus to your team, rather than just relying on tips as the benefit, because you will quickly see them actually performing better. So it's finally time to take control of your business. Sorry. One, data-driven decision making. So data will actually enable you to make and take decisions that are both intuitive and supported by tangible insights. It's also the best foundation to increase revenue and your profit margins. Now, profit margins is so Let me just explain the two terms just to be clear. Revenue is what your guest is paying. The profit margin is actually what you have left after you paid for the production of the food or the wine or whatever. So that's important because that's the money that you put in your pocket or you put in the bank. So the big question is, do you know how well your business is doing today? Think about that. Actually, if I actually asked you about that, would you be able to answer it? But it's actually time to answer that on a daily basis. And that's also possible. You can do that by tracking the performance of your business. So track KPIs. A KPI is an abbreviation for key performance indicators. Now, a KPI could be a goal. It could be revenue. It could be team performance. Could be best-selling items or products. Could be food costs and so on and so forth. If you just list those few goals up, your business will look much better for your management. It will look much better for the potential investors that's going to take it further, or it will look much better for the bank that potentially would grant you a loan. Or in general, just make you actually aware of how well you're performing. So you can sleep at night. So taking on a data-driven approach will actually enable you to stay in control of your business while making it super, super, super easy to determine the actual performance of your business. You can reduce food costs with this. And basically, your dream is to save time and free up yourself from all this administrative work and have a more convenient way of working so you can focus on what matters to you. So this is a practical example. How well is your business doing? And as I told you before, 2 out of 3 restaurant owners and managers cannot answer that question. So we believe it's time for a change, and it's super simple. If you look at the graphic here, it's just a graphic from our product that shows you the actual turnover for a specific period, and you can of course adjust that and see how it looks to the last period and combine different periods, so you can quickly get a sense of how busy will I be in the next week, how busy will my Friday be, and so on. This is all relevant to actually be able to constantly have a firm grip of your business. I will just see if I got a question here. That was just one guy writing hi. That's perfect. So going forward, use your data to motivate your team to reach new goals. This is my all-time favorite. The reason why is because it really works. No matter if you have a small team or a big team, giving them a goal like revenue or something like that allows them to actually feel they're really accomplishing something big. So they might not hit it always the first time, the second time, the third time, but when they and you can optimize it as you go, but when they actually hit it, you will see employees take much more responsibility than ever before. You will see them have that discipline to actually be aware what is the actual financial output of your business. How should it look like every day, every week, every month? Because it allows them to actually have an idea of if you have had a good service or bad service, or less good service, I would rather say. So think about this when you actually have that brief before you open your doors. Try to actually take into consideration that it's the experience is one thing, and being able to cater to the guest that's been there before, that's another thing, but it's also about being able to cater the right things, be able to recommend the right things, and so on and so forth. So now I think I got a yes, Alexa, I'll be sharing the presentation afterwards. A few examples here is also from our platform. It's the sales amount, it's the sales pieces, it's the gross margin, it's the basket in quantity size. It's also how many sales have you been doing. And no matter if you have a restaurant, cafe, or some restaurants, they have a small bakery, a small shop, and so on. You need to be able to do this on all different sections, right? Third thing is understand who your guests are to actually be able to personalize the guest experience. Now, you are doing a great job, I'm sure of that, and I know that you are working hard. You are working hardly on actually collecting a lot of information to build up a guest database that can be used to, for example, marketing or provide your guest with a more personal experience or experience that makes them come back again the third, fourth, and fifth time, and so on. The key thing here is to continue building up that database of guest profiles and allow everyone on your team to improve their work. Your team actually wants to continue to improve. They want to feel they're growing, and you need to give them the resources to allow them to do that. So even your marketing team will bring better results and target the right audiences online. If you don't have a marketing team, you potentially work with a consultancy. If you don't have a consultancy, I would recommend you to get Superb first of all, and then work with some, because just to put it in a practical matter, the marketing agency can actually use your audience, your guest database, your guest book, sorry, and attract lookalike audiences that match that database. And with, at least with Superb, we try to tell that marketing person every time they do an ad, how well did the ad perform? This ad attracts big parties, this ad attracts small parties, and so on and so forth. So it allows them to conclude in a better way, right, and optimize. Let's see here. I got another. Are you working with restaurants in Austria? Yes, we are working with, maybe you know Mochi. Amazing place, amazing people also. Use guest data to understand who your guest is. Where are they from? How much do they spend? What do they buy? How often do they visit you? And how can you actually nudge them to come back based on all this rich information that you have, right? So there is a few aspects there, and we're gonna do another webinar where we go in depth with this, but knowing, for example, how often your guests visit you could allow you to do certain emails to them, specific emails to them that would greet them and make them feel that you're actually recognizing that they've been here before. So instead of just relying on them getting, the same email, you could potentially start to play around with different emails and also do some. You could use platforms like the marketing platforms, the newsletter platforms, and actually engage a bit more with them. So if you look at your Instagram, a lot of your guests are actually probably not following you on Instagram, and that's actually where you're active and you're showing off, what's happening in your restaurant. It's like the actual newsletter for your restaurant, but you probably need to actually send a practical newsletter to make them go in and follow you on Instagram. That would be one way of doing it. Data will help you to personalize experiences, which your guest actually expects today. When serving up these memorable experiences, your guests are more likely to come back, spend more money, and spread the word about your restaurant with friends and family. If you look at the way it works today, or have been working, is, which we call the old way, is that you've been treating your guests as numbers and one-time customers. I'm not saying you are specifically, but I'm saying this has been the way, right? We're focusing a lot on attracting new guests all the time. We're using a lot of apps and services to get more guests in. But in the new way, the goal is actually to build relationships and continue making them come back. That is how you ultimately grow. And if you had your data today, you'll probably see that most of your revenue would come from a clientele that continues to come back. So 4, build relationships with your guests. Collect and store references and notes from their previous visits, enabling your team to make each returning guest feel recognized. So you can give them a welcome back, Johnny. That actually is worth a lot of money, trust me. The same as thanking them for their visit and in an automated email saying, we look forward to you coming back. You can also build up loyalty schemes. You can do that in many ways. We also have, just to talk from what our features can do, is we can offer you a loyalty setup that can allow you to give returning guests something on top of their experience. It could also, you are doing that already. You're giving them an extra glass of wine for their dessert or something like that. But it could also be, giving them a percentage for being a regular, or actually being, one thing is to actually record that they're coming back every time they pay. So that's why an all-in-one platform actually does not only make a sale on the point of sale, it also it sees that sale is connected to a specific guest, a specific customer, right? So you don't only look at guests coming back and how many times they visit you, but also looking at what they actually buy and so on. How much do they buy for? And then you can reward them in different ways. You can equip each team with insights about your regulars. So one of the things we are working on is quantifying data. So you can use tags to mark a specific person as a friend of the house, that they prefer a specific wine. And then potentially controversial one for many people, the meat lover. I would say wine lover, but it's two different ones. And then sending them an automated thank you email after their visit, right? Then you can increase revenue. So a key here is that you can craft personalized marketing to make your guests come back. You can also target the right audience based on your current guest book. You can host special events for regulars only, or for the guest that always buys wines. So if you're doing a wine event or something like that, those are the ones that you want to start collecting info about. And the insights about your guests makes upselling easier, to be able to go to that table and recommend them what they like. So one thing is, never, if a guest is thinking about a specific type of wine, never recommend them a white wine if you know that they always drink some kind of red wine or something like that. And let your team work together after weekly team goals. We address these things. So how do I make my restaurant become data-driven? 1, prioritize the platform that gives you access to take data-driven decisions. That's number 1. If you are like most restaurants are using 2-3 different platforms that are not integrated, or potentially promise you integrations that do not work, I would recommend you to revise your setup. So review your current software and determine whether it integrates with each other. If it does, then of course stick with it, and hopefully it will work as it should. If it does not, I would push you or advise you to reconsider if you can get something better. And sometimes you'll be surprised, you're probably paying the same for both. And a third thing, are you sure you even own your own data or own the access to it? That's also an important thing. And 4, choose an all-in-one platform that has a roadmap towards offering you more insights into your business and guests. Now, you quickly know that from the platform's website or from their vision, right? So on our website, you can read that Superb is a guest experience management platform. Within that, our goal is to actually collect the data and give you an opportunity to use that in a convenient way, right? So to sum up, today's winners will be the restaurants that use data to continuously provide each guest with a personalized experience and make them come back. I don't think that was a surprise. I think you know that already, and you're probably doing that very well. Data is becoming the new norm for restaurants worldwide, and now they're finally starting to open their eyes and see that this is actually more important than ever. It's super crucial for restaurants to switch towards becoming more data-driven to keep up with guest demands and continuously stay relevant for them. Because every brand has a specific amount of years in them before they lose their relevance. So in order to extend and continue to extend the relevance of your brand, you need to constantly remind your audience and your guests that you are evolving and that your experience is evolving. Data will simply simplify and provide restaurants with a competitive advantage. Now, if you could spend 50% of the time you spend of administrative tasks or whatever, if you could spend those on developing your restaurant, giving your guests, like working more with your guests and your team, potentially, opening a new place. I mean, that could be amazing, right? And it all lies in saving time, which is key for everyone, right? So just to wrap up, how can Superb help you? We introduced what we call guest experience management, or GXM. So this is the platform that allows you to perform at your best. And our roadmap is fundamentally based on giving a restaurant the convenience, the restaurant manager, the owner, and the team the convenience to work in a very simple way, but also be able to collect information about their guests and their business to be able to grow, to be able to improve the guest experience, to be able to make guests come back. And we are working with some of the world's best restaurants, and we continue to develop our platform and continue to look at how the world is changing, and try to see how we can constantly be on top of that. Thank you so much. So I will look at the different questions now. I see we already answered a few of them, so I'll give you just a few minutes to ask any questions if you prefer, and I will try to answer them the best way. I will be sharing the presentation. Yes, I will definitely do that. So finally, we'll see if some questions pop up. But finally, I just want to tell you all that it's a pleasure to do this, and you are more than welcome to reach out to me directly. I'll write my email in the field here, and you are welcome to write me with different questions or any other inquiries, and I'll make sure I get back to you ASAP. So other than that, guys, I hope the sun is shining at your end just like it is in Copenhagen. And if you have anything in mind, you can always contact me. Thank you so much. Cheers.